Welcome to the 301 Show's Fun Fan Friday here. We have a lot to get into today. We've got a player comp for one Walker Jenkins. We've got some Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx discussions to get into as well. We've got a KOC being the head coach for JJ McCarthy discussion to get into as well. And the biggest discussion of the day will be about Quinn Hughes, as that video has been doing very, very well here on the channel. We'll get into all of that and more here on the 301 show. But we, first of all, if you do end up liking this video, please leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel as well, where we are trying to grow this into the biggest and best Minnesota sports community here on YouTube. You can also leave comments down below. We'll read these on Fridays, like today. And you can also leave a discussion or a comment about topic suggestions for the power rankings, which we'll do at the end of this episode. Let's get into the video.
From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
All right, let's move on to the Nordic Report here. We'll start with a question. Again, my brother asked a lot of questions here. Said, what do you think having KOC as a head coach hurts? How much do you think having KOC as a head coach hurts JJ McCarthy's trade value? I.e., if you can't succeed under a head coach like KOC, where can he? Well, first, I think he would need to go. So I do think it does hurt it a little bit, at least. Obviously, like, I think KOC has built this QB whisperer reputation with bringing out the best in Sam Darnold and bringing out the best in Kirk Cousins. And if you look at it, he was still able to get 7 wins with a combination of Kirk and Josh Dobbs and Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins, that his second year as the Vikings head coach. And I do think that resume does affect McCarthy. But I will say I think I do think it decreases, but I do think what decreases McCarthy's trade value more is how much McCarthy's been hurt. I think that, to me, is the biggest thing, is also how much he's been hurt. In 2 years in the NFL, he's was out all of his rookie year. He was only played in 10 games last year, and I don't think he was fully healthy for all 10 of those games. And now in the second preseason game, he already got banged up, like we talked about on Tuesday. But he's already somewhat hurt this year again already, and I think that is hurting his trade value more than the KOC being his head coach and KOC not bringing out a ton in him. I do think something that I would like to see, actually, and I do think I'd like to see just one more year of JJ McCarthy getting starts here in Minnesota before I make an official ruling on if he's a bust or not. But one thing I would like to see if he's not here in Minnesota is I'd like to see him in San Francisco. If he goes and learns from Kyle Shanahan, and he's still a bust, like Kyle Shanahan can't get the best out of every single quarterback. Like, if you look at Trey Lance, he couldn't get the best out of him. But if he goes there, then he absolutely is a bust, I think. And if Kyle Shanahan can't go out and get the best out of him. I also think, too, maybe Kevin O'Connell here is the veteran quarterback whisperer, and he can't help, younger quarterbacks succeed the way he can veteran quarterbacks. Like we said, too, just also maybe he's just not, the quarterbacks I mentioned, they're all veteran quarterbacks in the league, and they were all had experience in the NFL before they came to Minnesota, or like Kirk with Minnesota before KOC got here. So they had at least learned a little bit about the NFL and just playing in the NFL. Also, maybe Kevin O'Connell isn't the QB whisperer that we thought he was, because Sam also spent a year in the Kyle Shanahan system before he came to Minnesota. So maybe that's the case too. But I think he is more of a quarterback whisperer. I think if Kyler succeeds, that is definitely more of a thing of more of a data point, more of a positive for KOC, at the very least being a quarterback or a veteran quarterback whisperer here in Minnesota. So that being said, let's move on to the next segment. We'll get into Target Field Talkers next. All right, moving now on to Target Field Talkers. We've got a question again from my brother Tommy. I said, what do you think is Walker Jenkins' floor and ceiling? Specifically, who is his player comp, ceiling and floor? So again, I think that these two, I've got a combo of player for his ceiling and then a player for his floor. I do think that he probably falls somewhere in between. So just keep that in mind. For my floor, we'll start with the floor because I want to talk about his ceiling more. So we'll start with the shorter part. His floor, I've got him as a less powerful Josh Hamilton, who's still a solid hitter and a kind of below average fielder, but still a serviceable fielder if you're getting like just average hitting. Without a ton of Josh Hamilton had a absolute ton of power, but I think his floor is a less, like Josh Hamilton was just a pure power hitter, so I think he's not just a pure power hitter, so just kind of a less powerful, but then he was able to roam around in center field at least a little bit, and some of the corner outfield positions a little bit too. So I think a slightly less powerful Josh Hamilton is my floor for Walker Jenkins. My ceiling is a combo of players. So offensively, he does remind me of Joe Mauer. And again, I know this is the absolute peak, but he does that swing is similar. I will say he does have more speed than Joe Mauer, obviously being able to play in the outfield. But his swing looks from that left side of the plate looks a lot like a Joe Mauer swing. So offensively, he does remind me, like I said, it would take a lot to get up to Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer is a Hall of Famer, but he does remind me he could get up to that Joe Mauer offensive level. And then defensively, he reminds me of Kyle Tucker in those corner outfield positions. If he's not playing center field, I think they'll start him in the corner outfield. When Buck gets back healthy, again, he might be playing center with Buxton injured right now, but a corner outfield, I think, is more of his at least short-term, long-term home, where it's when Buck is healthy. Like, I think he could move to center potentially if Buxton decides to leave. But if Buxton is healthy, I think Buxton still gets center field and Jenkins gets a corner outfield spot. And maybe if Buxton leaves too, they put Emmanuel Rodriguez in center field and keep Walker Jenkins in one of the two corner outfield spots. I think. But yeah, Joe Mauer at the plate with Kyle Tucker defense is my ceiling for Walker Jenkins, which I do think would be kind of a potential Hall of Fame player too. I do think he has that potential. Again, like it is way too early to tell, but I do think he could reach the Hall of Fame at this point if he if he mashes at the major league level, obviously. But we'll now move on to the Wolves Den before we get into Ringside Rundown and the Power Rankings segment. All right, so the Wolves Den here. We'll start with the Lynx. We've got 2 comments to go over about the Lynx and then 1 about the Wolves. So the Lynx, my brother, again, Tommy, sent this one in. He said, the Lynx appear to be the best Minnesota team since blank. I'd say they're significantly better than the 2026 Vikings. Not sure which team would be next. Maybe Timberwolves. So I do have a hard line for this one. I do think they're the best team since the mid-2010s Lynx, that dynasty run with Maya Moore. That is the absolute hard line. Like the fact that they were able to win multiple championships back then. You absolutely can't go back further than that right now. So that is my hard line for this. Now, that's at least where I started with this thought process of, okay, it's then. So it's we'll say 2017 because that was the last year they won the NBA Finals. So then I was thinking, okay, what teams since 2017 are as good or better than the Lynx? And I've got a couple here. So I think first of all, comparing them to the 2024 Vikings, like my brother does here, I think we got to see what they do in the playoffs because they are very similar. If they get swept in the first round, that would actually be very similar to the 2024 Vikings. If they have any type of playoff success, they are better than that 2024 Sam Darnold Vikings team. Then I had another thought process of, are they better than the Bomba Squad? But again, same thing. Like the Bomba Squad in 2019 was fantastic in the regular season. So if they have any type of playoff success, then they're better than that team. They have to be. And I think that 2019 Bomba Squad team was the second or third best team. So record-wise, so I think the Lynx are probably better than them anyways, even if they don't have playoff success. I think the Lynx probably edge out the Twins, that 2019 Twins team. So I think the only thing, or comparing them to those Timberwolves teams that made the conference finals, again, here's what I'll say about that. I think, again, they are similar. I think they are the same level as those Timberwolves teams if they don't win a championship. If they win a championship, they're better than those Timberwolves conference finals team, because I put more stock into the playoff success as well. So I think if they go on to win the championship this year, which again, it looks like they're favored to do, so I think that they are better than those Timberwolves teams if they can win the championship this year. And again, I'm counting those 2 Timberwolves championship teams, conference championship teams, as 2 separate teams here too, because they were 2 separate teams or 2 separate years. But they were also just vastly different rosters too, with Cat and then Julius and DDV too. So I think the team, again, it depends on the championship, but the team that they compare to without a champion, if they don't win a championship, you go back to the Minnesota Frost team 2 years ago that won the second Walter Cup team. I think they are worse than them. They're They're the best team since them. If they don't win a championship, if they do, I think they're better because they had a better regular season, and then you go back to the 2017 Lynx team. So I think if they lose the championship, then they're worse than the Frost. But if they win the championship, then it's since the mid-2010s Minnesota Lynx team. So that being said, we'll move on to the next Lynx thing here. Charlie Barley 914 commented that future stadium might not just have an ant statue outside of it. Miles is an absolute icon too. A twin dynasty in the Twin Cities is not out of the question. Let's go Wolves. Let's go Lynx. First of all, absolutely. I think the both of them are set up to absolutely, maybe not absolutely dominate, but they could have extended success here in the Twin Cities. I think they could absolutely do that. I think the Wolves and the Lynx could. Again, I think that if the Lynx win a championship this year, I think they're going to build a statue of Olivia Miles and Nafisa Collier. I think you have to build a statue of both. And honestly, I'm going to bring up this comparison about the Lynx. Well, first of all, the statue. If you build a statue of Olivia Miles, you could just build both of them. Like if there's a playoff moment with Miles and Collier, you build them together. I think you would have to build them at this and unveil them at the same time. I think if the Lynx win a championship this year, and if the Lynx win this year, it honestly would remind me of the UConn dynasty in women's college basketball. So I'm just going to go over some things here. UConn, they won the national championship in 2025. That was the Paige Becker's AZ Fudd team. They lost the national championship in 2022, made it to the game but lost. And then they won 4 straight from 2013 to 2016. So 13, 14, 15, and 16. The Lynx, if they win it this year, they would win in 2026. They lost the WNBA finals in 2024. And then they won the WNBA. They won 4 WNBA finals in 2011, 13, 15, and 17. There was a lot of similarities there from the UConn team from 2013 to now. And the Lynx team from 2011 to now. That would be very, very similar. Again, both the teams would have the same head coach, Cheryl Reeves in Minnesota, and Gino, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name because I always butcher it. But Coach Gino in UConn. So I do think that would be an actual comparison there of the Lynx and the UConn Huskies. And my brother Tommy will go on to the Timberwolves here. He did ask, what is Mark Stad's background? So he was he said other experience in team ownership for reference. So he was a minority owner of the Timberwolves. He was one of the minority owners. A-Rod and Lori were the two. Lori was the majority owner, but then of the minority owners, A-Rod had the most stock in the team. But then Mark Stad was one of the minority owners of the Timberwolves before he bought out Mark Lori. So he does have experience in basketball and the Timberwolves specifically. He's been here and seen what the Wolves are doing and trying to build here in Minnesota. So that is, I think, great to see. Mark Stad is, for background on his non-team ownership experience, he is the founder of Dragoneer Investment Group. That is a $37 billion venture capital firm. They have assets under management for the $37 billion. It's known for its successful investments in companies like OpenAI and Uber. So again, he is an investment capitalist, basically. He personally, so his investment group, Dragoneer Investment Group, has a net worth of $37 billion. He personally has a net worth of more than $5 billion too. So that is a little bit more of a background on Mark Stad. So yeah, I think it is good. I think the fact that he was a minority owner too is fantastic as well. We'll move on to the Rinkside Rundown and then our power rankings for the day. All right, now moving on to Rinkside Rundown. And oh boy, did New Jersey Devils fans find the video on Monday. It's got up over 1,000 views right now. So again, I do thank you for watching this, regardless if you're a Wild fan or not. But we do have some comments. We've got 4 comments to go over from that video. So the first one here and is actually one that I completely forgot about. And I did not even take that into account. I think this is actually from a video from a few weeks ago too. So this is from Joe F2504. He said, now do a video about why McCarr hasn't signed with Colorado yet. It starts to make sense why. They're both playing chicken with each other to first set the market. He'll re-sign in Minnesota guaranteed. So again, I still don't think it's 100% guaranteed that he'll sign in Minnesota. I still do think it's like a 95 to 99% chance. But I actually do agree that he is playing chicken with Cale Makar. I do think that whoever signs first, the other one is going to ask for like $100,000 more. I do think that is the case. I also, that being said too, while I think that is the case, I also think that there is a term debate between Bill Guerin and Quinn Hughes. I think Quinn wants 3 years to line up with Jack when they can both be free agents. And I think Bill Guerin and the Wild want 5 years, is the reporting that I have seen. So I will agree that I think that I think AAV, he is playing chicken with Cale Makar, while terms he's debating and fighting, quote unquote, fighting with Bill Guerin and the Wild. So these next 3 are from the video on Monday. X Fact OG says, honestly, the most likely situation is Quinn on the Wild this season and then the Devils next year. So I do think that I agree and I disagree with that. And the way I agree is I do think that is the most likely situation for Quinn Hughes to end up on the New Jersey Devils. But where I'll disagree here, and again, like I said, I do think the deal ends up getting done in Minnesota. I do think if the two sides can't come to an extension agreement by the trade deadline, I think Bill Guerin is going to see that, and if there's zero way for them to come to terms with each other, if there's zero chance, I think Bill Guerin is going to see that and say, no, I'm going to trade you and get something. I do not think he's going to walk from the Wild for nothing in free agency. I think he could walk from some other team. But I don't think he is going to walk for nothing from Minnesota. I think they'll try to recoup some of the assets that they gave up last year for Quinn. So I think he will be on the Wild for the majority of this season, at least. And even if he goes to the Devils in the offseason, I don't think it's from Minnesota. I think Bill Guerin is going to try to get some assets back for the biggest asset that they have on the team being Quinn Hughes. So the last two comments we have here are pretty long, or longer ones. So I'll read it out here. So Devious8247 says, I agree. The only two people who know what's going on is Quinn and Billy G. The ball is in Quinn's court, and nobody knows what he told Billy G. Now, we can't compare this situation to Kirill Kaprizov because that was all about money and not about playing with his brothers. All Minnie had to do was increase the offer to Kirill until he accepted. As we learned from Jim Rutherford, it's not about winning or money with Quinn. It was about playing with his brothers. That is what made Vancouver trade him with 2 years left on his contract. So again, unless Quinn comes out and says it's not that important to him now about playing with his brothers, and if that is the case, I believe he would have already signed some type of contract with Minnie. If he still feels that way about his brothers, these so-called rumors about him being traded to the Devils will become a reality. So again, first of all, I really don't think he's being traded to the New Jersey Devils. I don't think New Jersey has enough assets for him for the Wild to agree to a trade. I think there's way more teams that could use a Quinn Hughes, and they have better assets, better return to get back for the Wild to get back for Quinn Hughes. So I don't think that he is going to be traded necessarily to New Jersey Devils. Do I think that that means there's a 0 chance that he goes to the Devils at all? No. I think that there is a chance that he could go to the Devils, but I think that would be in free agency either this year or in 3 years when his contract is up. And I do think the other thing here with the comparing it to the Kaprizov situation, I'm more comparing it to the Kaprizov situation in the timeline. Like I think this could walk right up to the start of the season. I agree that I think it's actually offering less years on that contract would make him say yes. Like I think he would be more likely to say yes to a 3-year deal than a 4 or 5 year deal. But again, the contract situation being compared to Kaprizov, I think is more likely to happen. That's where I think it's more likely to happen is comparing him to Kaprizov. Is just the timeline of signing a contract. And I will say I don't disagree that he wants to play with his brothers. I do think that he probably does, and I think I just think it's less of a factor than everybody is making it out to be. But I still think it is a factor that is there. And I do think it is easier for him to, for Jack and Quinn to meet up as free agents somewhere else in 3 years, and then that team can trade for Luke. And again, I do think Detroit is a very, very good option for that to meet up. Again, it is home for Michigan is home for the Hughes brothers, and they also, again, we have seen this with the Tkachuks, again, playing together, but they also want to play with the USA teammates. And so Dylan Larkin is there right now. And so I think that is another reason for them to go to Detroit. But yeah, because again, Luke is under contract for I think it's 6 or 7 more years. So I do think them leaving in free agency from Minnesota and from New Jersey in 3 years, and then a team trading for Luke would be an easy or a lot easier of a thing, because again, I just don't think New Jersey has the assets to actually trade for Quinn. The next final comment we have here for the Rinkside Rundown, it comes from Captain Mofo NGO 584. He says, April 2025, Canucks president of hockey operations Jim Rutherford publicly said that Quinn had previously expressed a desire to play with his brothers. Rutherford said Rutherford said this could make keeping Quinn in Vancouver difficult. By December 2025, Vancouver had received indication from Quinn's agent that it was highly unlikely that Quinn would sign an extension with the Canucks. Rutherford said Quinn wanted to be closer to his family and closer to his brothers, and wanted to play with his brothers at some point. All of this Quinn drama started with Jim Rutherford's statements regarding Quinn playing with his brothers, Jack and Luke. People seem to forget about Luke in this entire equation. So first of all, I do think that Quinn also wants to compete for a Stanley Cup. I don't think New Jersey is even close to competing for a Stanley Cup right now. I think meeting up elsewhere is more likely for Quinn and Jack to do. I do think Luke is in a tricky situation right now. Again, he's making $9 million per year. Jack is getting paid $8 million. Luke getting paid more than Jack is absolutely insane, and which is why I don't think it is going to work in New Jersey. I think Quinn is going to end up getting paid $18 to $20 million per year. And the fact that, again, you quoted here, Quinn wants to be closer to his family and closer to his brothers. Well, again, closer to his family means Michigan. Closer to his family isn't New Jersey. Closer to his family between Minnesota and New Jersey is Minnesota. Again, what do you think is easier, getting a flight from Detroit to Minneapolis or Detroit to New Jersey? I just think that actually competing for a Stanley Cup too is way more likely in Minnesota for Quinn. And I'm not saying they're going to go out and get Jack. I'm just saying that it's. I don't think Quinn is going anywhere for at least a couple more years. And yes, I understand that he wants to be closer to his family and closer to his brothers. Again, he is closer to his family and his brothers right now coming from Vancouver. Minnesota just geographically is closer, and he gets to play for a better team. I think that is another part. That's another part that people forget about too, is how bad the Canucks actually were. The Canucks were in a terrible situation, and they just were not that good. And I think that, again, also was weighing. I think that was part of why they traded him too, is just to get some younger guy. Like, they got 3 young guys from Minnesota and a pick. And I just personally, I don't see the Wild trading him to New Jersey specifically if they can't get a deal done. I think he is going to go to a different contender, and then he'll walk from them in free agency if there's no extension done. If there is an extension done, there's no reason to trade him from the Wild in the first place. So I don't see a trade to New Jersey happening. I do think, again, like I said, it is way more likely that he signs in free agency with New Jersey either at the end of the offseason, after the Wild had traded him, or in 3 years he goes to New Jersey because Jack has signed an extension there and they get to all play together. But it's way more difficult in 3 years because you got to assume that Jack's getting a raise. Jack's not going to be playing for $8 million a year in 3 years. So New Jersey needs to do that now. But again, then they've got, $17 million wrapped up in Luke and Jack right now, plus then 18 to 20 in what Quinn is going to be making. They're not going to be able to build the rest of the team around those guys. And so I just don't see it happening in New Jersey specifically. So that being said, let's move on to power rankings here. And we've got a good one on tap for you here today. All right, welcome into our final segment of today's episode, the power rankings segment. The power rankings is something we do at the end of each and every Friday episode, where we take a Minnesota sports topic and rank them from 1 to 10. Do want to say that you can comment down below as well if you want to give me any ideas for the future topics, and we will do those in future episodes. Today, we have a fantastic topic here for this one, where we are ranking the top 10 position groups here for this season. We're taking all of the Minnesota teams and ranking all of the position groups throughout all of the teams. So the number 10 here is the Minnesota Twins first baseman. Again, it's mostly just Royce Lewis at this point. Victor Carantini does come in and play. But I do really like this room here for the Twins and their again, you can have Josh Bell if absolutely needed. He's been good at the plate. But the Twins first baseman comes in at number 10. Number 9, again, if you'd done this list last year, this one would be a lot higher. Number 9 is the Minnesota Frost goaltenders. Again, losing Nicole Hensley does hurt, but I do think they brought in a couple of great potential replacements, and you still have Matty Rooney too. And number 8 here, we're sticking with the Frost and going with their forwards. Again, I do think their forwards are absolutely fantastic. They've got some depth. They've got some superstars, Kelly Panic, Grace Zumwinkle, Taylor Fox now, not Taylor Heisey. But the Frost forwards come in at number 8. Number 7, we get to the Minnesota Vikings offensive tackles here. Again, headlined by Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw. There are still some questions about the depth at this position, which is why I cannot put them any higher. Again, if we're talking about just starters, this might be in the top 3 or 4 position groups. And number 6 here, because you know more of their depth, I do think they have the better superstar. Number 6 is the Minnesota Wild defenders, obviously led by Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber. But then Spurgeon and Brodin, I think, are great 3 and 4 defensemen too. It's just, again, this would be a top 3 room here if there wasn't so many questions about Brodin and Spurgeon's health at this point. So those two, the health kind of bring down this group a little bit here. So coming in now at number 5, again, headlined by the rookie, is the Minnesota Lynx guards. Again, just a fantastic room as they are actually contending for a playoff spot. Courtney Williams and Kayla McBride also fall in here, so those two obviously help this room out a lot as well. So my cover just got adjusted here, so I'm trying to do that at the same time. Again, number 4, again, just doesn't have the depth, but again, I put a lot of trust in the center, or the starter of this, and he's the only one on the Vikings roster that plays this position. But coming in at number 4, it's the Minnesota Vikings kicker. Again, just the fact that you can trust Will Reichert night in and night out makes it just by himself the 4th best / most trustworthy position groups on this list. Number 3, we're going back to the hardwood with the Minnesota Timberwolves guards here. So the Ant, LaMelo, I think DDV counts as a guard as well. Io DeSunmo, they come in at number 3. And the top 2 here are kind of why I wanted to make this list. I think there is a line in the sand. To me, these are the 2 best and most trustworthy groups, position groups in all of just Minnesota sports, and I think they're decently close, but I do think that these two are ahead of the Wolves guards at this point. Maybe that's a debate, but I do think that these two are clearly ahead, in my opinion. Number 2 is the Minnesota Wild goaltenders. Again, personally, I know Gus looked shaky at the end of last season, but I still think I still trust either one of those two. And even Calvin Pickard as a backup, the third goalie, I still do trust. Again, he's not going to get in that many games, but if he can just hold down the fort and the Wild to win the game 5-4, like that's all you're asking him to do. You're not asking him to go get a shutout like you are on some nights with Wallstedt and Gustafsson. So I do think the Wild goaltenders come in at number 2. And then number 1, again, I do think it's close, but I think number 1 is the number 1, again, because of the depth. But the number 1 is the Minnesota Vikings wide receiver room. Again, they have the big 3 in Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and Juwan Jennings, but then Ty Felton has taken a step forward. Obviously, Miles Price is looking good on the special teams as well, but they come in as the number 1 position group in Minnesota sports right now. Again, this is all just talking about right now. So that is the list here. With that being said, I do want to thank you for joining us for this one. Please leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel. Those are the 2 things that help this channel grow the most. You can also share this with any friends and family. We will actually have an episode out tomorrow. Look for that. That is a 301 banter interview that we have with the PWHL's number 7 overall pick, Emma Peschel. It was a fantastic conversation, so look for that. Will be coming out tomorrow. Also, keep the comments coming down below as we have these Friday discussions, and we will see you next time. Peace.